While the outlook for the Sixers season has been put entirely on pause as the future of Joel Embiid hangs in the balance, Daryl Morey continues his work in the margins in upgrading the bottom of the roster. Alex Reese was recently added to a two-way contract to fill that final two-way slot with some unique implications regarding the contract. I want to break down the latest on what exactly he can bring to the Sixers team, why I think Daryl Morey still deserves some credit for the work that he's doing in the margins, and while I understand that does not make up for what is going down the rest of the season, I still think it's important to talk about what this means for the Sixers moving forward. So before I dive fully into it, do want to remind you guys, make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 71.1% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed to us here at Sixers Digest just yet. I understand it has been a brutal year here in the Sixers world, but we are in it together and want as many people a part of this Sixers Digest family as possible. So appreciate you tuning in. And to dive into the exactly what I want to get into today, we got this from Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype here, who said the Philadelphia 76ers have signed forward Alex Reese to a 2-year, two-way deal, league sources told Hoops Hype. And what is unique about this is you really very rarely see these two-year contracts for two-year contracts for two-way guys. That is something that I think is basically going to be a long-term tryout for Alex Reese. And he's a pretty interesting guy to get into here. To kind of tell his story, I do want to start off with this brief write-up from shout out to Sixers Adam Aronson of the Philly Voice, who says the Sixers are signing 25-year-old Alex Reese to a two-way contract, according to a report Thursday afternoon from Shams Charania of ESPN. Reese, who is listed at 6'9" and 245 pounds, has appeared in one NBA game in his career, which came earlier this season as a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder. He spent the opening days of the season with the team before quickly being waived. A 4-year player at Alabama in college, Reese has spent much of the season with the Rip City Remix, the G League affiliate of the Portland Trail Blazers. In 16 games with 15 starts with Rip City, Reese has averaged 19.3 points, 7.8 rebounds, 1.1 assists, 1.8 blocks, and 1.3 steals per game. After only shooting 31.1% from the three-point range in college, Reese has become a lethal threat from beyond the arc in G League action. This season, he has averaged a gargantuan 9.1 long-range tries per game and knocked down 42.1% of these attempts. So a nice little breakdown and synopsis of who Alex Reese is. To dive into him a little bit deeper, start with reflecting on his college stats here, and then I do want to fill in the gaps for how he got to this point, and then take a deeper look at the bottom of the Sixers roster. But to touch on his college stats, he's a guy who spent 4 years at Alabama, and to be completely honest, I don't even remember him. That I'm a guy who watches plenty of college hoops, am invested, especially around draft time, trying to get who each of these guys are, and Alex Reese is not a guy who even rang a bell when I first saw this. And looking at his stats overall, across his 124 college games, he averaged just 6.1 points, 3.3 rebounds, 0.6 assists per game, and you can see the three-point numbers not nearly what they currently are. 3.6 three-point attempts per game, shooting just 31.1%. He shot below 30% from three his final 2 seasons at Alabama there. And what he really was at Alabama was very much a role player, a connector. What has happened to Alex Reese since that time is he's completely reinvented himself as a basketball player. And one of the cooler stories with him is he took a year after he completed college and was straight up a bartender for a year. That he was not playing professional basketball, was not trying, and then he kind of sniffed around, had the itch, still 6'9", and thought, how can I make this work? And what did he do? He embraced three-point shooting. And if you're 6'9" and can shoot the three-pointer well, there is a place for you in the NBA, and that's the exact spot that Alex Reese is trying to find. So to take a peek at his full G League stats, which I know were referenced by Sixers Adam here, you can see the most telling stats are most recently. The last 16 games this season with Rip City here, he's played 30.3 minutes per game, averaging 19.3 points, 7.4 rebounds, 1.1 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.8 blocks, and it is the three-point numbers that speak volumes. 9.1 three-point attempts and connecting at a 42.1% rate. Yeah, that'll play in the NBA there if that is legit. Now, granted, I'm not saying this is a franchise-altering addition here. He is who he is. He might be a rotation piece. I am a subscriber to the theory that you should be adding as many talents that can't quite fit teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are loaded with young talent on their roster, and that's sort of the book that Daryl Morey is going by. But when regards to the future outlook from here, it is a 2-year contract, and that is sort of the position that the Sixers have leaned on. We know that this season is off the rails. We know that Joel Embiid is likely being shut down for the year. Could be official any second now that we get that announcement. But the reality is you still got to continue building. That you've made this investment. You have all these pieces put together, and you got to find some way out of this. So to take a look at what I do think Daryl Morey gives credit for, I do want to peek at the multi-year contracts. Now, we've had plenty of conversations about the top of the roster, but where I think credit is deserved is down here at the bottom. So I'll I'll start off with Gershon Yabusele here, who obviously is going to be an unrestricted free agent. That as a guy who Daryl Morey has spoken pretty openly about their desire to retain. He's done everything possible to carve out cap space. I did an awesome interview with Yossi Goslin, who is a cap guru when it comes to that, and he seems pretty optimistic that that is the case, that Gershon will be back in a Sixers uniform, and he believes it won't even take the full mid-level exception, which is really appealing there because you can break that up. That could be a nice creative way where Daryl Morey can make them things happen. But regardless, to continue on this list, then there's Ricky Council. I don't want to be in the anti-Ricky Council conversation, but I will just say this. My optimism for this guy being a long-term potential prospect have certainly faded a little bit there. The lack of understanding his role is just so glaring, and boy, that travel against the Bulls, man, that 3-on-1 fast break in which he couldn't decide what to do, that will live in my head forever. But regardless, we're not going to do the Ricky conversation today. He's certainly not harmful having on this roster, especially when basically the intention is to lose at this point. But to continue on, Adem Bona, another guy that they clearly believe in and handed him a full standard NBA contract for multiple seasons at the NBA draft after selecting him in the second round. Not typically the standard there. Then there's Lonnie Walker, who there is obviously the remainder of this season, the prorated minimum that he did sign, and a team option. Those little red blocks are team options there. So you have a team option for Lonnie Walker, a team option for Jared Butler, and a team option for Justin Edwards. Those are all guys that, in my mind, should 1,000% be back. I also do want to note that after next season, for Justin Edwards, there's a restricted free agent. Now, the difference between restricted and unrestricted free agent, pretty simple. For restricted, you get a chance to match. That if, for Justin Edwards specifically, let's say there's a team, the Portland Trailblazers we'll just use here, that really love what they're seeing from him. They want to give him an offer. You know what? We're going to pay something we don't believe the Sixers will match here. Here's 3 years, $22 million for Justin Edwards. We want him. The Sixers have a choice to sit there right then and said, I don't think he's worth that. We can let him walk, or you can simply match that. So this is really effective for having guys set their market and still being able to retain them. I love having that option. That's another guy that was added to it is Quentin Grimes has a similar outlook here. And I do not have him as a part of the screenshot, but also in that interview with Yossi Goslin, he seemed to pretty firmly believe that the Sixers are going to be willing to match just about anything on Quentin Grimes. And it should be noted that in that trade, they retain the full bird rights, so there won't be cap restrictions in that angle. And then continuing on with this roster, Chuma Okeke, I do not think this guy will hear from probably ever again here. He does seem like he was just kind of one of these 10-day splash in the pans. Disappointing because I still have a little bit of hope for him as a basketball player. But to continue on, here are the two-way contracts. There is Jeff Doughton, and I do think this season will be the end of the road for the 27-year-old. I think the addition of Jared Butler, more so than anything, was evidence that they do not see this path continuing for Jeff Doughton. But shout out to him. We'll wish him the best. Then there is Alex Reese on that 2-year, two-way contract with a restricted free agent at the end. Again, very notable to me if this guy does turn out to anything. And then there is David Roddy. Similar situation there. It is just a 1-year contract for his two-way, but you do have the restricted option. And shout out to David Roddy, who's making the most of it. Kind of a cool first full circle moment, as obviously he was initially drafted by the Sixers, then traded away on draft night for the part of the trade that officially landed DeAnthony Melton. An excellent trade by Daryl Morey, by the way, especially because, if I'm being honest, probably don't see David Roddy having the highest NBA potential. Frankly, I lean on the side of I don't think he ultimately sticks in the league when everything settles. He's fun to have right now. I love the Roddy chance that went down during that just brutal loss to the Bulls. But the reality is, I think we know who he is at this point in the game. Worth keeping around for the time being, but at least it keeps that type of flexibility. But for Alex Reese specifically, this is an archetype of player the Sixers should be willing to add. Shooters, shooters, shooters. We've been banging that table for years that surrounding Joel Embiid with shooters is the way to win. Now, while we may not have that same foundation we once did, we can still see the state of the NBA, and getting 6'9" guys that can absolutely lace it from deep is always a positive thing. We'll see if this can ultimately translate at the NBA level. Again, this is not a guy that I had circled as one of my guys or I firmly believed in forever, but I'm open to seeing if he has truly reinvented himself in a way that is more transferable to modern NBA basketball. To be determined at this point, but I do give Morey a little bit of credit for keeping these options on the table, continuing to work the margins, having this level of flexibility at the bottom of the roster, and we will see what the results ultimately fall. But let me know what you guys think. If this signing does anything for you guys, are you just completely out on the season? Are you frustrated? And is there anybody that could get you to get bought back in? What is the one thing that you were watching for the remainder of the season? Because unfortunately, there is still basketball to be played. We cannot skip to wait for those ping pong balls to get launched and see where the draft picks stack up. The season will continue on. So drop your thoughts below. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. And one more time, doing remind you guys to make sure you are smashing that subscribe button. At this time, once again, just 29% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to the channel just yet. So let's get this Sixers Digest continuing to grow. Get this family up, and I'll be talking with you next time. Peace.